Good morning. It's July 17th. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about nutrition. Some of my friends have asked me what I fertilize my trees with or what I add to my potting mixes. And so I just thought that I would do a short video talking about some of the things that I use that work for me and may not work for you, but they sure do work for me. Things that I've discovered over the many years of growing figs, and things that my family discovered many, many years ago, going all the way back actually to my father and my uncle and my grandfather that all came from Italy, established new lives here in this country. And they discovered things many, many decades ago living in Italy, and the old Italian growers discovered. And they brought not only their fig varieties here from Italy, but they brought their secrets and their methods. And fortunately, I paid attention. So I just got back from vacation, and I had my son help me get my figs in the greenhouse because of the storms, the windstorms, and I feel better when I'm away for a few days. But most of these that I can carry out will be taken out into the sun for the rest of the time that I'm here before I go back on vacation again. Just discovered just now that I have my first ripe Smith. Wow, I didn't even know it. Oh, it's ready. It's ready. It'd be ready. Let's not leave it another day. Shouldn't be too hasty when it comes to eating a fig at its very, very best. But without going into varieties and things, and I just picked a really ripe Canadria, potato. I'm going to take a bite out of this, since I hope I have your attention. Let me take a quick bite. This is superb. It is superb. Canadria has to be very ripe, and it loves the hot weather. And that's why I want to talk to you about early figs. Early, healthy, productive figs. And some of the methods I use to achieve that goal. One more bite, sorry. I look so forward to this. That is delicious. Pardon me. Can't help myself. Well, be interesting to find out what that Smith's going to taste like tomorrow too. Well, let me get over to nutrition. And I'm going to do this in two parts because it's just too long. And so I'll talk about what I use as a mix, a soil mix. I can talk a little bit about it. I use this as a base. You can see that, just plain and simple. That's the one I use all the time. But when I'm finished, it's only about half of my potting mix, because I use a lot of composted manure, very well composted, at least 1 year composted manure. And I add topsoil to my mix. And why do I do that? Not a lot, but a portion. Because it's natural. It's nature's way. That's how nature does it. If you went to Italy or Greece or Turkey or any place where there's beautiful figs growing around the Mediterranean or anywhere else, they're not growing in peat moss. You're not going to find them growing in peat moss. They're going to be growing in an alkaline soil. Very often volcanic around Italy and in Greece and places like that. And there are nutrients in the soil that just cannot be replicated by these potting mixes. It just can't be done. It's not nature's way. And I believe in nature's way. This is what I have learned over the decades. This is how we do it, my family. So if you want early results, if you want healthy trees that produce lots of fruit, big fruit, healthy fruit, and delicious fruit, fruit that tastes better, if you want that, I'm just suggesting that you maybe give it a try. Many growers have their own mixes and that they stick to, and that's great. And I respect that. That's wonderful. I'm just putting out ideas to some novice growers and some of my friends that have asked, or anybody else that wants to follow by example, because I think you can see that these methods really work for me. And that's why I'm making this video. It's all about sharing information with me. I don't sell figs. I don't sell cuttings. I've said that before. I just don't. I just love this hobby, and I love sharing my information, and I love receiving information because I learn new things every day. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't feel threatened by learning new things every day. I love it. And by the way, I just want to mention that I have my greenhouse all open when I'm away. I've got all my panels up there open, and those will open and close on hinges according to need. Now they're open for the year, for the rest of the summer, of course. And I've got panels open here. There's no plastic. These are all open. And I keep my doors open. I'm going to keep that one open. I closed that because I was a little bit worried when I left about the heavy windstorms from these thunderstorms. And I've had some damage out with my plants in the ground out there. And the wind can really rip your leaves apart. They won't usually cause too much permanent damage, but I try to prevent it as much as I can. It's supposed to get so hot in the next few days, but they're all that I can bring out, I'm bringing them out into the sun. That's another important factor. Always. Never keep your figs indoors if you can put them out in the bright sunshine. Just my personal opinion, for whatever it's worth. So let's get back to this real quickly. I'm rambling on here. One of the things that I learned to use many decades ago was oyster shell. Figs love calcium, and they love oyster shell. Since I only have two hands, I can't really pull that out, but it's like, it's very finely pulverized, what I use. It's all natural, as you can see, and I try to stay organic as much as possible. And it is like a powder, and I add a nice heaping handful like that, a nice one, say to a 5, just to give you an idea, to a 5-gallon pot, I will use a large handful of this and mix it in. And they love it, and it will just dissolve over the years. I mean, they love it, and you don't have to replace it for a long time. Now, another thing I use a lot of, because figs like a high pH, is I use limestone. But I don't use the fast-acting pulverized. I use granular, and it's going to last a lot longer. And your tree will utilize it as it needs it. And the limestone is extremely effective in producing strong, vigorous growth in your plant. Now, the DiPaolo brothers of Belclair Nursery, the famous DiPaolo brothers, and Martha Stewart referred to them as the king of figs, and their video is available. Her video is available with regard to her visit there. And I strongly recommend it. Most experienced figgers have seen that tape and love it. But they knew the secret. They knew the secret of lime. And they used to coat the top of their pots, their containers, with lime, sometimes 1 inch, 2 inches thick. Well, my dad told me back in Italy, and he was born at the foot of Mount Vesuvius, not far from Pompeii. He used to tell me about how the fig trees used to grow so beautifully in the volcanic areas where previous eruptions took place and where the lava came over the ground. And the farmers knew that, and the fig growers knew that in Italy, and they took advantage of that. My father told me many, many stories about figs and the different varieties that were there. I believe that Malta Black came from there, in that area where he was, or probably in other places too, but he used to refer to it all the time as the black Malta, Malta meaning many. And he said there was a white Malta too, that he really missed, because he didn't find it in this country. But that's another subject. Now here's another controversial thing, and you'll see people on the internet, and they're they'll put some of this down and they'll grow some tomatoes or something for 6 weeks, and they'll say, oh, I didn't see any. Let me tell you something. What's it going to hurt? I don't agree with it. Figs are figs, and figs have their own requirements, and this is something that takes place over a period of time. You know, your trees are going to produce for not maybe a few the first year, and then more the second year, and even more the third year, if you keep things balanced in your containers. Or the ground, because when I plant my trees in the ground, I dig a very tiny hole, just big enough to squeeze my root ball in, because I want those roots to remain compressed. I don't ever plant my in-ground trees in loose dirt. I don't recommend it, okay? And I always put lime in the hole, and I always put this in the hole. And this is a pulverized volcanic mineral-based substance, which is easily obtained. And I really have trouble opening this up. But I do want to show you. I should have had it open, I guess. I often say I'm not Cecil B. DeMille when it comes to movie production. But you can see it's a fine powder. It's beautiful stuff. And you only need a big handful. You know, a nice handful like that. Put it in your 5-gallon pot. Same as the 10 or two handfuls. It really, I just think it works well. And here, I'll run more quickly. I like to keep things organic if I can. So this is what I use very often when I need to buy some more. As far as fertilizer, and this one I use. And you can see it's 5-5-5, and you know what that means. It's not high nitrogen. It's not high anything. It's just 5-5-5, and I believe in that too. Because if you add too much nitrogen, or if you make your plants grow too vigorously, you're just going to get branches and leaves, and you're not going to get many figs. And I think you want figs. I want figs. And I want early figs. And I want trees that are going to produce a lot of figs. So this is what I do. This is some Epsom salt. I use a little Epsom salt now and then, every month or so. Not much, maybe a tablespoon to a couple gallons. I don't even use as much as they recommend, but I put it in there. I believe in it. Every once in a while, I give a little bit of liquid iron, according to the instruction. Because remember, your container plants are in containers and you're watering them a lot, and when it rains it goes right through. And by the way, I definitely prefer grow bags, definitely. And I know they require more work, more watering, but hey, no one ever said that growing figs was easy. It's a lot of work. But I have much better results with grow bags. I had good results before using plastic, but last year I mainly switched to grow bags, and I like my results. They're really good. But remember, the water leaches out, and so you need to replace some of these things. And that's what I do. Now, there are some more things that I'll talk about in part 2, and I'll talk about exactly how I mix my soil for my fig trees. And I'll talk a little bit about how I prepare the in-ground fig trees too, and talk about how I try to look for the highest ground, because that's going to give you the best results. And I like planting them near structures if I can, but you don't have to, especially if you choose the right varieties that are more suited to this climatic area, which is the Northeast. I live in South Jersey, as I've mentioned. 7A is the zone. And so there are things that you can do with your in-ground trees that make them produce more fruit and earlier. And that's the whole key. Early, early, early. I just can't stress that enough. We'll talk more about that in the future, because there's a lot of misconceptions about that subject, I think. And we'll talk more in the future about winter protection, which is, in my opinion, a must, an absolute must. Some kind of protection or some kind of a technique in zone 7A and colder. And we will continue. So, with that, have a great day. I hope some of this information is helpful to you. I believe in these things that I'm telling you about. It's all about sharing, and I want to share. I use these methods in 2 states. I've used them for a long time, many, many decades actually, and they work. I can remember getting oyster shells, just having a truckload of them delivered down in Virginia and dumped in the driveway, and I ended up making my driveway out of oyster shells. And any tree that grew next to that, and we're talking back around 26 years ago, just did so well that I quickly learned to move those oyster shells around and put a wheelbarrow full around my in-ground trees, and they love it. Figs just love calcium. Okay, have a great day.